Well, yesterday we witnessed the news that we didn't really want to hear, but we knew was coming. Of course, the sad, sad news of the passing, the death of Queen Elizabeth II, Her Majesty the Queen. And I gather that the moment that she dies, it immediately the what do you call it? The Majesty goes to the next in line, King Charles III. And of course, there's so many things going on, so many emotions flying around. A lot of people, of course, mourning. We have 10 days of mourning now in this country, and there's a lot of adjustments. The Queen reigned for 70 years, and there's probably very few people around who know what you do other than what's written down, who'd actually witnessed the transformation of the King to the Queen previously, and now can advise or even talk about or share memories of what actually happens. So presumably there's protocols, there's plans. I think there's something called Operation Unicorn, which is about taking the Queen's body from Scotland down to, I guess, Buckingham Palace. And then there's something called Operation London Bridge, which is what happens when the Queen dies, and numerous things will happen. And I dare say there are going to be tweaks and changes to all of that. But it is all change. And this, like so many things that we in recent years have witnessed, massive events which have affected us. And I think sometimes we forget that these are massive events, that we are living through history. My father, he had lived through numerous, he died at 83, I think it was, and he lived through some massive things in history, huge seismic changes, such as the Second World War. He was obviously only a young lad, and he lived through that. And he lived through the advent of the internet coming. And of course, I've lived through that, from analog to digital. We've lived in more recent times to these global things such as the COVID pandemic, which we've gone through and seen the results of locking people in their houses, the merits or not of that. And of course, now we are living through another momentous occasion which may or may not affect people's lives, but certainly their emotions. I appreciate that there are people out there who are not into the monarchy and perhaps do not have any emotion at the fact of the death of a monarch. But of course, I would hazard that there is a majority of people who do believe in the monarchy, enjoy having a monarchy, and will be mourning the sad death of Queen Elizabeth. But I'm looking forward now to what goes on now, the all change. It's excuse me, it's quite bizarre to think of this, that massive amounts of infrastructure will be changing. Banknotes, for example, will no longer bear the face of Her Majesty the Queen, but will have King Charles III on it. Post boxes, things that we don't even think about, the post boxes with ER on it will also change, and postage stamps, of course. Many things are going to change going forward, and it's quite strange to think that this is going to happen. Of course, I dare say all of this has been planned for, and that people have already done it. I imagine that there are already in bank vaults banknotes with the king on it, and they will be issued at some point, maybe after the 10 days of mourning. I don't know what the official thing is. And I'm really sort of looking to you guys, because I suppose I sort of think that there should be a guidebook to what happens when your monarch dies. So, for example, the Victorians would have dressed in black. Everybody probably would have dressed, who could afford any black clothes. And most clothes were pretty dark and somber in the Victorian days anyway. People would have walked around with armbands and this sort of thing. We know that the Victorians can do sombre very, very well. But in this day of multicultural living in a modern world and the sort of carefree world where people are perhaps a lot freer with their thoughts and things are so much more transitory, I can't help feeling that although the nation and the state will be enforcing a 10-day mourning period and certain corporations will be going along with it, that the modern psyche is not used to this. That the modern psyche will probably deal with the death of the Queen. Many people, I think, and I don't know, I may be wrong. They'll be thinking, that was yesterday or the day before. Let's get back to normal. Why are all the flags at half mast and all of this? And I wonder if we've forgotten how to do respect and these big things. I mean, Lady Diana, I guess, was the last time that the nation mourned in such a visceral way. We obviously had the death of Prince Philip as well. But to me, I mean, I haven't had a television for a long time. And of course, television is a place where you get a lot of this imagery in this day and age. And of course, newspapers. And I tend not to read newspapers. I don't get newspapers. The way that I get the news now has changed rapidly. And I'm not that much on social media. And I wonder how social media is reflecting all of this. And to be honest with you, I'm not that interested to go and see it. So there are very few sources that I see. So I feel in a way that I personally am floundering on what's the official way of doing things. Presumably people go to the BBC because that is the British Broadcasting Corporation, and that would be, I suppose, seen as the official, and potentially newspapers like The Times would be again deemed to be the official newspaper of authority when you're looking for advice or news on a dead certain situation. But of course, we are in this very strange world of the internet, and people are taking their news and their advice and the way that they move very much. So, I mean, one of the questions, I sent a message to the lovely Julia, who is my partner, but she doesn't live with me, and she has her own children from her marriage. And I said, do you know if the kids go to school today? What's the score? I don't know. The death of the Queen is announced. We go into mourning. Does everything continue the same? Presumably there will be a day off from work, or a national mourning day, I suppose, or a day of respect. I don't know. And maybe all of this will slowly come to fruition, that we just muddle along until we are told the subjects of Her Majesty, or His Majesty now. I know that Prince Charles, the King. It's so difficult to get used to these terms. I know that the King is, I believe it's at 6 o'clock this evening, as I record this on the 9th of September, will be addressing the nation and the Commonwealth. And I suppose he will start with lamenting, of course, his mother and all of that. But I wonder whether he will be putting forward what happens now. Maybe people watching this will be thinking, Richard, nothing changed really. It's the change of a head of state, but we carry on. Everyone gets on with it, and all the rest of it. And maybe that's true. I suppose it's because these events in our lifetime, because she's reigned for 70 years, and I'm only in my late 50s, that I don't know what the protocol is. King Charles is likely only to reign for 20 to 25 years, I suppose, and there's a chance that I will outlive him because I'm in my mid-50s if all goes well, and that I will see the changeover to King William, which is not something we want to be thinking about at all. But I'm just thinking his reign is not going to be as long as, obviously, the previous one. And so, therefore, we will know, people will be around in living memory to know what you do. But this is just such a strange situation. I made a video yesterday after it was announced that the Queen had died, and released it to pay a tribute and to tell a story of when I actually met the Queen, and I shook hands with her dressed as an overgrown schoolboy at an event I was at, and that video is available on the Bald Explorer channel. And so I do have, I met the Queen momentarily for probably less than a minute, and spoke to her as she spoke to me. And it's a memory, of course, that's etched on my mind because she is the Queen. Will I ever meet King Charles the Third? Probably unlikely in my current capacity as a YouTuber, but you never know. And it's a very odd situation, isn't it? There's this sort of feeling that I ought to know what we're supposed to do, other than going back to business as normal. And then I'm sort of treading, like, is there a protocol I should be accepting that everybody else will look at me and go, oh, Richard, you don't know what you're doing now? And I don't know. And that's why I'm appealing to you, if you know what we're supposed to do. And I'm sure that lots of people will be feeling, right, okay, but I can hear the world is still turning. Cars are still going past my house. The businesses are open. The lights are on. We haven't stopped standing still as a nation, and I dare say there will be a moment where we will have that moment of silence where we remember the Queen, and we look forward to the future. And we have to look forward, because we cannot stand still. And I presume that's what this 10 days of mourning is, to reflect and think about the Queen's reign and all the things that she has done for this country. I hope, though, being somebody who believes in this country and believing particularly in England and its greatness, that we can move forward from what seems to be in recent times, this bashing ourselves over the head, the notion that England is a terrible place, being English, flying the flag is a dreadful thing. I hope that we can change that, and that look at our nation with a lot of love and respect. Yes, we've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But it's not those that we want to dwell on, because we learn from those mistakes and we do great things. And I hope that we can be proud as an English nation, as a British nation, of having a monarchy that has been so good for the nation, and that we hope and pray that King Charles III will also be good for this country, as I was going to say, as I'm sure he will be. I know for me he has a number of green policies or politics that I'm not particularly in favour of, but I think because he's been more outspoken, I didn't really know what the Queen thought, because she never explained, and I can't remember the phrase that they use now. There was a certain mystique about the Queen which made her more interesting, I think, than Charles. But nevertheless, he is the king, and we respect that, and it would be interesting to see how things go forward. As you can see, I'm floundering here because I've not been in this situation before, and I'm not confident about what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to say. So let's just say that the Queen will be obviously sorely missed, and long live the King. Let me go then to some of the comments that we have had for yesterday's Chinwag, when we had no knowledge that this was actually happening or about to happen. And that was the art of conversation, or how conversation helps, particularly in those important times. As indeed, I imagine now, being able to express yourself, being able to talk, being able to converse with people about how you feel, whether for good or for bad, apprehension or worry for the future. It is good to talk. And as I said in yesterday's one, having different opinions and being able to express them, I think is absolutely vital. If the other person listens and just says, yeah, okay, I may disagree, but it doesn't mean that I'd now suddenly close you down and think of you as being unimportant. We all have different views, and surely we can respect one another. Ingram Carr says, I very much enjoy a deep and profound conversation. It can be stimulating if someone has opposing thoughts or ideas to me. I don't mind if someone thinks differently. It's great to listen because I may be incorrect and I can learn something. I often have these conversations with my best friend Gary. Trouble is, whenever I mention Margaret Thatcher, he shuts me down because he'll have none of it. I think that's true, that there are certain subjects that some people cannot even bear to listen to, let alone comment on, which I think is a shame, really. But thank you for that. Kay Dean says, Richard, great chinwag. It's a wonderful topic of conversation. I think that we should all agree to disagree in a good way. Yes, so if you just can't agree with someone, we should just say, that's great. That's your opinion. Fine. I agree that you are entitled to that opinion. But I disagree with it wholeheartedly or partly or whatever. It's always nice to hear someone's different opinions and thoughts. It makes you think and maybe open your mind. And I totally agree with you on that. Thank you, Kathy, for that. Andrew Bradbury says, I'm more of a doer than a talker. So some people don't like to talk. They just get on with things. But then you can easily be misunderstood, can't you? And that's where I think communication is, and talking around and listening to someone is important. But I completely get what you do. I mean, I like to think of myself as a doer, but I'm also a talker. I like to talk, but I'm not really into gossip. I think gossip is a completely a different thing, that people who just get together and have a gossip or a moan and all of that. I think that's a somewhat different thing from having intellectual and stimulating conversations. Louise Lage says, having a stimulating conversation with somebody or a few people in a forum where opinions and suggestions can be lobbied back and forth is a wonderful idea, but I just don't think it's possible here. I don't know what you mean by here. Do you mean on YouTube or on the internet or on the Chinwag show? This type of forum is very much at the mercy of the creator, who can either choose or delete or ignore comments that doesn't suit them, or fob them up as rubbish quickly and move on. Excuse me. Something just flew into my mouth. That's an interesting point. There's a funny notion, I think, about excuse me, I've suddenly swallowed something which is not good, but don't worry, I'm not going to choke to death. There's a strange notion, I think, about the whole business of the right to free speech and being able to express your opinion, etc., and that you should be able to express your opinion anywhere and everywhere. I don't know necessarily that is the case. Of course, you might want to express your opinion in somebody's own personal house, and that might be an opinion which the house owner, the person whose space that is not wanting to listen to, and say, look, if you want to slag me off or slag my children off or my wife or whatever, or say horrible things about me, you're very entitled to do that, but do that in the street. Don't do it in my front room, because I own this front room, I own this space. I think what Louise is saying there, that sometimes on forums like YouTube, in the comments, people can say something, and the people who, and as she said, the creator can come in and just say, well, I'm not having that, I'll delete it. but to me, that is like the comments, because YouTube allow the creator of the page to curate those comments, allows you to edit them and delete them. To me, that means that space is the curators, the creators, getting myself tongue-tied here, is it's almost like their front room. This is, on my page, it's my space. So therefore, if people want to say something nasty personally about me, or personally about somebody else, or something which is going to potentially go in a direction where a lot of harm is being created, I think it's down to the owner of the comments, to be able to edit that, and I think that's perfectly legitimate. However, if somebody wants to slag me off personally and say some horrible things, I have the ability to say, well, I don't think this is the right place for it. But do it on any other social media platform. You're most welcome to say whatever you like about me. But you can go in the street and shout through a megaphone at my house from the pavement if you so wish. You're perfectly legitimate to do that. You can say it on your Twitter page, on your Facebook account, on your own Instagram. Richard Vobes is a horrible person and I hate him, and all of that. Perfectly happy for you to do that. It's your opinion. I may not share that opinion, but you can do it. But to do it on my page, it seems a strange thing to let somebody do that, unless because you really don't care. But I'm not sure. You see, so I kind of understand what you mean. She goes on. Therefore, the depth of conversation tends to be rather shallow and more like an opinion poll than a conversation. And if you want to have those conversations, as I say, have them elsewhere, I suppose. It's the difference between upsetting the balance. Here on my page, it's nice that people can share their thoughts, but if they're going to get a little bit nasty, then yes, I think personal. I think, and if anybody gets very personal about any individual, this isn't the right place to do that. But broadly, your opinions are very welcome, even if they are not my opinion. They are welcome. It's just sometimes people get very personal and then make it an attack, and I don't think that's the right thing to do in somebody else's home, or you can attack me wherever, as I say, in the street. Shirley Lynch says, yes, love to talk, but TV and iPad games, etc., is a conversation stopper. The art of conversing is struggling today. I think that's also true. Linux says, Dan Yelson, it says, is the way to go if you're not dependent on certain Windows programs that are not available on Windows. So thank you very much for that. What I like about the Vobe Show is that you're never polemic or bigoted. Well, now a lot of people would disagree with you and say that I am, so it's very nice of you to say that. You often play the devil's advocate, which I approve of, even though I've heard you criticise those who habitually do this. I think if somebody habitually plays the devil's advocate, it's very difficult to know what they think, because they just seem to take the opposite opinion for the sake of it. I have no problem with somebody taking the opposite opinion to elicit response, as you say, to play the devil's advocate. I think that can be a good thing. But some people I know will just do that as a matter of course all the time, and so you never sort of get a measure of what they're like, and then you just think, what's the merit of that? Because you never really know, them and why are they doing? Are they just doing that for a kick? And sometimes I think maybe they are, or to stir the pot for the sake of it. And I don't always think that we need to stir the pot for the sake of it. Much to the annoyance of most people, I know I am one who does this often, because I feel people who are extremely opinionated and certain in their positions are often blind to alternative perspectives. And that's very true. And it's very easy when you've got an opinion, a very strong opinion, you listen to another bit of somebody's opinion and go, no, you're just wrong. Now, I know that with myself. I have very strong opinions. Say, for example, one of the things I'm very strong and opinionated on, and people will know this, is about global warming. And I will have relatively fixed opinions on this. I am open to thinking that perhaps the global warming is, there's a chance. I'll put it this way. So just to quickly go through this, I don't want to spend much time on it. My opinion on global warming is that it's not completely down to man. Well, that the climate changes, and that man might contribute to it, but is not contributing it to these catastrophe changes that we're being told about on the scale that we're being told. I think it's far, far less, personally. And I think we're being frightened for other motives, really, to move things in a direction that I don't think we at this stage. However, that being said, I'm very much open if you could have renewables that didn't cost a lot, there wasn't hypocrisy involved in it, and that it wasn't being rammed down our throat, that we had the choice to have all those sort of things. So I don't think that the fossil fuels are bad, because we have created an amazing civilization all around the world based on the advantages of fossil fuels, and I'm certainly don't like the pollution that they have, and I think we should clean that up as soon as we can, as much as we can. So that's I'm very much sort of on that front. Now I know that people have been trying to they persuade you and they try to force it down your throat, and then they call you an idiot. And it's very difficult when somebody says, "Well, you're just wrong," and here's a whole bunch of highly technical reasons why you're wrong. And if you don't read it, if you don't acknowledge it, then you're an idiot. It's very difficult then to have your opinion changed, because the minute people call you names, it's like, well, I'm not going to engage with you. And so you then double down on your opinion. So I'm open to the ideas, but some of these things, when they've been made into these huge catastrophic things, you just think, I just don't know that that's right. So I'm going to stay with caution, more on my side of the argument than the other. I may be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's what I believe. So I am absolutely. I'm with you there, Dan. He also goes on to say, I was listening to your Naked Englishman on Spotify this morning. I'm not sure if it's what you intended or not, but I think it would be great if you started a third YouTube channel dedicated to reviewing and talking about books. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I'll look at that. Brian Jeffries says, I went into conservation area yesterday, but there was nobody to talk to, and then I realized, I got into a conversation area and realized it was a Yes, thank you very much. Andrew Winkworth says, hi Richard, yet again enjoyed your Chinwag conversations that divide opinion, like faith, politics, geology, creation, theories, are healthy and fine by me. I like the word, now, can I say this? Acquiescence, is that the word? No, that might not be it. I'm just trying to think. Where you agree to disagree, because opinions are exactly that. They are not fact. I don't know how you pronounce that, actually. Some words I love reading. My ability to pronounce certain words, I think, stems from my appalling education at 1970s secondary education comprehensive school. And the love of language was not instilled into me back then. And I really wish it was, so that I was better at being able to, A, sight read, and B, pronounce certain words which are built up of letters in a way that I'm not immediately familiar. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but that's my own personal thing. But silence in a relationship is fine, as me and Tina can drive for hours not saying a word, but it's what we call compatible silence. So keep talking, thinking and listening, and remember the ABC in life. Accept nothing, believe nothing, check everything. Cheers and take care. Andrew, I think that's very interesting, and thank you very much for that. And going on to the silence, I think that's a subject in itself. There is that, you can talk to somebody, but also you don't need to talk, because you have mutual understanding. And sitting, as you say, in a car on a journey and not feeling awkward about sitting in silence is a marvellous thing also. Brilliant. Well, thank you for bearing with me in this rather stumbling and fumbling version of the Chinwag. I am only human after all. On the day after the sad news of Her Majesty's death, and the beginning of a new era, which is going to be interesting and fascinating. And there are, I don't suppose, any guidebooks about what happens next. And that's why I'm fumbling all over the place. But if you know what we should do or have opinions on what's going to happen next, we'd love to hear your thoughts on not only the passing of the Queen, but the situation immediately. What do we do? What do you think about national mourning? What respect and all of that? And what do you anticipate for King Charles III in the future in our lives? So please make those known. I look forward to reading them out to you in the next Chinwag. Take care, and thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.